Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me and look at the slides okay. Welcome to this free webinar. We will now start. Thank you for joining us. Please note that this webinar will be recorded. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please type these in the public chat or private chat to the moderators, myself or Antti, and we will seek to answer these in the end. So this webinar is part of the EU-funded BalkanMed Innova project, where the Cyprus University of Technology is a partner in this project, and ARIS is supporting the university. ARIS is a startup accelerator founded by Deloitte and Bank of Cyprus and located in Limassol. This is where I am now. I am Maria Yanni. I am Senior Manager at Deloitte, and together with Antti and Petros, today we will discuss about financing your venture in these challenging times that we are living. So today we will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, on everyone's changing habits, and how we can finance our business or new or existing business in this current situation. We'll discuss alternative options for financing your startup, including grants, as well as the recent schemes announced by the government just yesterday. And then we'll have a chat with Petros Timotheou. Petros has founded Innovopolis, an ARIS alumni startup. So COVID-19 has had an impact on consumers' behavior, on everyone's health, and as a result on the markets everywhere around the world. We can see this by massive changes in how we live, how we operate, and our behaviors in the market as well. Unfortunately, these are unprecedented times which we haven't expected. However, this also poses an opportunity for existing and new businesses to refocus their operations, to restructure, or to start something new. Many businesses, successful ones, have started during the previous crisis. So this is an opportunity, again, to capture this unique momentum and start your own venture. You would then be wondering, how can I finance my new project or my existing project, which is struggling and I need to pivot or restructure? So we are discussing today the startup financing lifecycle. I would like to ask you if you know what's FFF, to type this in the chat, and we'll see that later. So basically this positive line which goes up is a successful startup curve. Unfortunately, not all startups are experiencing this. And at each stage of this life cycle, we have different levels of financing, and different types of financing are applicable for each business. We have angels, grants, and there's a bit of a gap to get venture capital. Then some startups manage to get listed on the stock exchange via an IPO or initial public offering. And then there is also crowdfunding platforms who are aiming to bridge this gap between the investors and venture capitalists. And we'll look at each of these one by one. So FFF stands for friends, family, and fools, in quotes, because it's everyone who would invest in you at the initial stage without having done any due diligence, any research, or having seen any proof that your idea works, just from your excitement and the spark in your eye. And this is initial funding to get you started if you manage to pursue someone to give you funding. Antti, you want to discuss a bit about bootstrapping?
Yes, sure. Bootstrapping basically means growing your business with little or no external financing or funding, by relying on your own savings and revenue to operate and expand. Many entrepreneurs get their business started by bootstrapping, and like tightening your laces, let's say, while wearing boots, bootstrapping means operating a business as frugally as possible and finding ways to avoid the need of external financing or funding. and some consider it a very good way to start a business.
Yeah, the good thing is you don't give up any equity usually, but it can be quite challenging to manage to survive on your own. Okay, then moving on, you could get some equity, so giving a part of your share capital of your company to an investor. Initially, angel investors, either via network or individuals, could contribute their expertise, and you should aim for smart money at this stage. It would be someone who believes in your company and has seen a proof of concept usually, but it's quite early stage still. Then we step up to venture capital. These are corporate networks who contribute also their expertise, but they would be more demanding in relation to returns, a bit control, and a set target plan, including an exit plan. So an exit plan could involve some kind of a buyout or a partnership, or even listing at the stock exchange via an initial public offering, where you will basically list your company in the market. This is for mature companies, of course, and it could involve a lot of reporting and other requirements if you're listed in the stock exchange. However, it can provide much needed liquidity. So in Cyprus, we have some investment incentives for investors. The Cyprus Investment Program requires a minimum of at least 75,000 to be donated either to the Research and Innovation Foundation or in a certified innovative enterprise, which we have a few now in Cyprus. And that's good because this is a donation. It doesn't require giving up any equity. Certified innovative enterprises then get also tax benefits themselves, and the individual investors who are investing in innovative enterprises can get a tax deduction. There is also the intellectual property regime, which provides again deemed deduction in taxable profits, and capital gains are exempt. This is effective until June 2021, but it is then expected to be reviewed again and probably renewed. So it's a good way to attract investors in Cyprus. Then you could focus on crowdfunding if it's relevant to your business. Platforms like Kickstarter would require that you are ready to deliver a product, but it's a way to also test your market fit and whether the consumers like your product. And then we have equity-based crowdfunding, which also aims to bridge the gap and provide a platform for startups to raise funding, but it can involve also VCs, venture capital, being part of the investors, depending on the platform you are using. Overall, we would advise that you consider the timing that you get investment, because as your value increases when you prove your concept and you prove the market and everything, also the risk decreases for your business. And you should consider carefully to raise funding actually when you don't need it very much, so that you have more bargaining power and more leverage. So before that step up, and you should consider also some vesting schemes which could incentivize your employees, intellectual property development, the stage where this is said, and strategic partnerships which could be relevant for your business. Now on to Antti to discuss the grants and EU funding.
Yes, grants is an alternative way to fund your project, and grants are available either through European programs or structural funds. The European programs aim at promoting the external and internal policy of the EU. And these programs are competitive and transnational in nature. All member states are eligible to apply for funding through these programs, and which are financed by the contributions of the member states to the general budget. On the other hand, the structural funds are implemented through national development plans, which have to be also approved by the European Commission as well. And the member states are responsible for the implementation and the evaluation of the relevant call for proposals and to decide which projects are going to be financed or not. At the national level, the Research and Innovation Foundation announced last year 3 relevant products for programs, for startups and SMEs: the Pre-Seed, the Seed, and Innovate. We're going to discuss about these 3 programs in a bit. And also through the Research and Innovation Foundation, Cypriot organizations are offered networking opportunities for participating in international brokerage events abroad. At the European level, there are many programs to finance your business and your projects. The most relevant for startups and SMEs is the European Innovation Council Accelerator, previously known as the SME instrument as well, for those who are familiar with this program. And they aim to support innovators, entrepreneurs, and small companies by providing funding opportunities and acceleration services. There are also many other programs like Erasmus+, which is the program for education, training, and youth, and LIFE, which funds activities in the fields of environment and climate change. So the 3 calls that have been announced by the Research and Innovation Foundation targeting startups and existing enterprises are the Pre-Seed, Seed, and Innovate. Under the Pre-Seed, startups aiming at creating products that are still at their early stage and that are not fully developed were targeted. Under the Seed program, startups that are active for a short period of time and their product is in a more mature stage with no market penetration yet are eligible to apply for funding. And under the Innovate, existing enterprises or SMEs can seek funding based that their products is on the test or the pilot phase. These 3 calls are now closed, but they're expected to reopen again in July 2020. Under the measures that the Research and Innovation Foundation has taken to address the COVID-19 pandemic consequences, by releasing 3 calls for proposals, the Seed, Innovate, and Concept. The Seed and Innovate are closed for now, but the Concept is still open for anyone, for any entity that would like to develop technology and under the topic of the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences. They're eligible to do so until mid-December 2020. And also, as already mentioned, the Research and Innovation Foundation provide networking opportunities for Cypriot organizations to support their extroversion and help them find partners abroad. A catalog of events is regularly updated by the Research and Innovation Foundation, and these events are mainly organized in the framework of other European programs. The Research and Innovation Foundation provides funding for their participation, and the call is still open for any organization that is interested to submit a proposal. And if they would like to do so, they have to do it at least 15 calendar days prior to the date of the event. Some examples of events that have been announced in their webpage are shown here, but considering the COVID-19 restriction, this list is expected to be updated by the Research and Innovation Foundation with options and events that will take place later before the end of this year. The European Innovation Council Accelerator is the most relevant, let's say, call for proposal targeting SMEs and startups at the European level. This program is highly competitive compared to the national funding and the calls available at national level. Their objective is to support high risk and high potential small and medium-sized enterprises and help them develop and bring new innovative products to the market. Under this program, only single companies can apply compared to consortium that has to apply in other European programs. They are targeting only for-profit SMEs only, including young companies and startups from any sector. So there is no limit in the industry or the sector a company is operating. There are two ways to prove that organizations may get funded, either through grants or blended finance. And by blended finance, we mean that the applicants have the option to seek investment in equity in addition to the grant. Then grants are expected to finance activities from technology readiness level 6 to 8, which means projects that already have a working prototype, and any products above this level are financed only through blended finance. The call is continuously open with regular cutoffs, and the next cutoff date is on the beginning of October 2020. So now let's continue with the debt financing. Maria, would you like to continue?
Yes, of course. So another option for businesses to get funding is the obvious one, bank loans, which is often not really suitable for new businesses and startups because the banks would be risk averse. They would require a proven business model, proven revenues, and some kind of security for the loans which they will provide. So, for example, when you mortgage your house in exchange of your loan, the European Investment Fund is cooperating with local banks and to support access to financing. And in particular, in Cyprus, Bank of Cyprus and Ancoria are participating by the Cyprus Entrepreneurship Fund, and RCB is participating via the European Fund for Strategic Investments and Innofin. And we'll see a bit more about this because they're relevant to the new measures that have been announced just yesterday. With the current crisis, part of the package that was announced in March included relevant to financing a freeze in the loan repayments up to the end of this year, so for the 9 months ending December 2020. This is applicable for performing borrowers, and existing businesses would already know this. But there are also new measures which have been announced just the last 2 days. The first one is the financing by the Pan-European Guarantee Fund. Basically, all member states contribute in the form of guarantees to this fund. Then this fund provides guarantees to local banks, and the banks provide funding to SMEs and mid-sized businesses who are up to 3,000 employees. This fund is not allocated per member state, and Cyprus is expected to be eligible for up to 300 or 400 million, considering the size that they are expecting. Another of the new measures is the financing by the European Investment Bank. This is also an existing plan which has been increased by an additional 500 million from the Cyprus government. And it also, again, allows funding for eligible businesses up to 3,000 employees who are Cypriot businesses registered and operating in Cyprus. And this basically provides low interest rates, an option for a fixed or floating interest rate for loans up to 12 years. The interest rates are actually eligible for subsidy, as we will see later on. And there is a restriction that no layoffs of staff are allowed above 2% of the staff as at the date that the scheme was announced, so 2 days ago. Similarly, The Cyprus Entrepreneurship Fund that we mentioned already is being extended with an additional 400 million, allowing for an 800 million of financing because it's a 50-50 from the Cyprus government and the European Investment Bank sharing the risk. And this also provides lower interest rates than a business would normally get. And again, with a similar restrictions for no layoffs allowed. And the potential for interest rate to be subsidized. Even with a low interest rate, you can get a subsidy for the interest rate, as we will see on the next scheme. So the interest rate subsidy that has been announced by the state covers working capital loans and investment loans, and is not applicable for repayment of existing facilities. This is eligible to performing borrowers who are struggling due to the pandemic, and all types of borrowers, from individuals to SMEs, very small businesses, larger enterprises are eligible. And this relates to loans provided for the 9 months up to December 2020. Again, we have the restriction for no layoffs of staff. There is a restriction in the interest as which is subsidized, as it cannot exceed twice the payroll costs of last year, 2019, or a quarter of total turnover for 2019. And this effectively subsidizes interest rates up to 3.5% for the first 2 years that we enter into the scheme, and then 2% or 1.5% depending on the size of the business for the years 3 and 4. And finally, we have the grants, which are one-off grants to cover rental, operating, and other expenses, applicable to small businesses up to 50 employees who have already been in the government schemes for a full or partial freeze of their operations for mid-April to mid-May. This is a one-off grant depending on the size of your employees, where you can see the grant amounts. They are up to 600,000 for up to 50 employees. So we've seen a change in the market. We've seen some markets go up and others facing a rapid decline. And everyone would be wondering whether this is actually a boom, whether this is sustainable or not. I believe it remains to be seen. We are now entering into this new normal. So we would like now to start the discussion with Petros. Petros has founded Innovopolis, an Irish startup. Thank you for joining us, Petros, from Zurich.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. And thank you for Aris for the interesting presentation.
Cool. Do you want to say one or two things about Innovopolis and iKeep first?
Yeah, okay. So they're two startups, they're similar. They're both involved in the area of waste of urban resources. The one is a heavy engineering startup. So Innovopolis is really about technology, engineering technology, whereas iKeep is a digital platform. So they're a bit different in how you can actually raise funding and what are the risks related to both businesses. I would say Innovopolis is a lot harder to take to the market than a digital platform. And for those who are getting into entrepreneurship, this is something you should understand from the beginning, because the channel of investment is very different for the types of startups that you choose to develop.
Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you could share what types of financing you have raised so far, or you are aiming for each of your startups.
Perfect, yes. So, I mean, the beginning is always a bit bootstrapping. I would say, yeah, of course, the FF plan also works. FF is not bad, although we really did the bootstrapping with my partner. I would say that the reason being that FF kind of involves family into your business, because you'll probably give them shareholding and they don't really understand the business. Maybe you've got to be very careful with shareholders agreements, what rights you give them and so what. So yeah, definitely FF is the way forward, but it can become technically complicated down the road. Our next step was, this was part of Innovopolis. So Innovopolis, because it's an engineering startup, we went down the grant road. It's a substantial, meaning that because Innovopolis is subject to regulatory frameworks of governments, it's tough to get private investors on board before you can pass that regulation process. So that's why we focus on grants for Innovopolis, whereas iKeep, we just secured private investment. So that's from business angels, and that's because we're not exposed to the regulatory framework, and it's a lot easier for them to invest in us. There we go.
Yeah.
That's where we are at the moment. So we've got that big gap to the VCs, IPOs, and that's kind of the valley of death. We'll see when we get through that.
Yeah, like all startups are struggling to survive that tipping point.
Exactly.
So Petros, what was the hardest point in your startup journey today? Do you consider financing maybe the most hard thing to do, or?
I think funding is relatively, especially well, now Corona makes it a bit tougher, but before was relatively easy. I think I would say more regulatory framework, especially the fact that I was running Innovopolis for a long time. So I think this is the case, especially for healthcare startups. So if your industry is heavily regulated, then this is a challenging thing. It means that you have to deal with the authorities a lot. You have to deal with a lot of paperwork. So for us, it was really that part. We had traction from customers internationally, but having to overcome the regulations either at individual national levels or either for us to get the technology we use past that point was really a tough journey, because we saw the traction, but we couldn't deliver to it because of the regulation framework.
Yeah. And comparing Cyprus to Zurich, that we are currently based, what differences would you identify both in the startup ecosystem and also in financing availability?
Okay, so I would say there's two things, I think, and I'm from Cyprus, so I grew up in Cyprus, and I think Cyprus is a very, very good location to start your startup. I always believe that in Europe it could be a startup hub. You've got excellent access to the right resources, network resources. So government, you can pilot your project relatively easy, a lot easier than Switzerland, I would say. And I think this is what is very valuable from being in Cyprus at the moment. I would say what is good about being in Switzerland is they've got a lot and in-depth background of dealing with innovation. Their technical universities, their banks, the institutional investors, also business angels, are located in Switzerland, so you get a lot of smart money. But I think Cyprus can build towards that, especially now with the programs that you've shown. I'm sure we will evolve from there. I would say the biggest problem about Cyprus is you really need to come up with a business plan that shows how you can move out of the island. So Cyprus is a very small market. If you really want to scale and become a startup, a unicorn, or in these terms, maybe not a unicorn, but yeah, move into a bigger market, that leap from the island of Cyprus to the main markets in Europe will be a bit of a challenge. But I think slowly with the EU, this will be bridged with more and more network events and so on.
Yeah, I think some people maybe would have been surprised, because they would, from what you're saying, that Cyprus is a good place for a startup, because they would argue that things are happening slower than they would have. But we have seen that with the current pandemic, the government was able to adopt digital innovation much faster. So this, I think, provides good hope that things can happen faster and more innovation can happen in Cyprus. But I agree also that we should be thinking big when we are planning anything. You should, even with a delay in globalization, which is happening now because of the pandemic, I think still startups need to plan for the expanding everywhere, or at least bigger than Cyprus.
Well, I think if the startups in Cyprus, if you plan small, I mean, success stories, a lot of investors in Europe want a single success story, for a startup. So if you can prove that you have, even if in the case of Cyprus, if you can prove, for instance, that you have a solution to a problem in your local market, and that there is people willingness to pay for what you've delivered, and then you can really prove that the problem in Cyprus is replicable in another market in Europe, That's good enough of a story to get private investors from abroad to help you bridge over, and that's where you need smart money, I think, in Cyprus. Really try to use business angel networks maybe in Europe, so that you can get smart money which can help you flip into the local markets of the European Union.
Yeah, I agree with you. So a lot of startups ask, we've received this question, what do the investors want? What's your view on this?
Okay, so I mean, there's various stages of a startup. If you're a really early stage startup, what investors want, we've got to remember that, especially, we'll split it into two sides. Okay, we showed in the first slide is the late stage IPO venture capital. Let's put venture capital guys. These are really about they're all about the numbers. Okay, they want returns. They're investing in you because they want to see the tenfold return on investment that they're going to find down the road. But I would not focus on that at that stage, especially in Cyprus. I would focus more on the pivor, so the business angels. And these guys are really, we got to remember, they are probably executives that have worked for a long time in their position. They're looking for a challenge. They want to feel the passion of the entrepreneur, the leadership of the entrepreneur. So they're looking for people that have a vision, are really in love with their project. They realize that the chances are most of the startups that they're going to invest in will probably end up not existing after 3-4 years, maybe even earlier. So they know that the probability is less than 10%. It's actually more around 1%. So they're really not asking you to prove to them, yeah, I've got a solution and it's going to make. They want to see that you're passionate and you can build a team and you can manage your team milestone per milestone, inch by inch, through the process. That's what they're looking for mostly.
Yeah. I think investors basically see through you and they see whether you actually care about this. They see whether you've done your research, whether your numbers are right, or whether you just presented some nice numbers just to make a pitch deck. So we also get the question whether how do I know if my forecasts are correct? And I think forecasts are just assumptions. They involve a lot of assumptions. So you can never get it correct. Even the big businesses cannot get exactly correct because we cannot forecast the future. We could not forecast this pandemic. We cannot forecast how things will turn out. I think what's important is that you've done your homework, you've done your testing. As you said, Cyprus could be your test case.
Yeah.
And you can then expand to the other markets of the world.
And I mean, valuation, I think also is something that we needed to. It's very subjective, It's a at the end of the day, it's about being logical about what you expect, what are the expectations, what the expectations of the investor is. So I think it's about building assumptions, like you said, Maria, that are based around logic and not like these extreme scenarios that you think might happen. And that's how you transpire as a good entrepreneur to an investor. If you're making these theoretical unless you're Elon Musk that wants to go to the moon, but I think you need to build a few startups before you get to the Elon Musk.
He has done a lot of testing and testing. So what would you advise a new startup who is starting now? What to focus on?
Okay, so I mean, for starting now is we're entering into if you are setting up a startup, we're entering into a new type of dimension of doing business. Yeah, you mentioned a few trends, the remote trend. Leverage that. I would say leverage the fact that your startup can really go global. Movement of people will be, I think, a little bit less at the moment. So use the internet as much as possible. Take on the opportunity that you have to build a team. I think there's a good opportunity to find people that are educated, that are a bit lost at the moment. Maybe they lost their jobs. So it is a good moment to really build a strong team with skilled people that have a vision of solving a specific problem. Try to find these people, get together, enjoy the journey. And I'm sure Corona or no Corona, as long as you're dedicated to the journey, you'll make it through.
I liked what you said in our previous discussion that no one is expecting you now to generate revenue. So it's a good opportunity to use this time to set up, to build, to test, and then to be ready when hopefully the markets pick up.
And I think also, now a lot of people are also open to talking to other people. So it's a good moment to talk to executives if you're solving a problem in a specific industry. A lot of the executives are at home, they're working from home. They're more than happy to have a short conversation with someone. So it's a really good time to do market research at the moment and like talk to people that are experts in industries.
Yes, we've seen some comments in the chat. Cyprus is a really good place to test ideas in education, tourism, real estate, shipping. And Greece, hopefully tourism will be able to restart as it's like 1/5 of our GDP is coming from tourism in Cyprus. Real estate is also currently impacted. Education, I think, will have a big boost from online education, basically. From this current situation. We've seen a lot of new programs coming for education platforms. Some other comments, Cyprus has some limitation, especially in B2C, because it's a small market, it's not easy to raise funding.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, B2C is it's a scaling thing. So if you can prove in Cyprus, even if it's a small market, it's actually more easy to communicate. So if you can show that you can grow the seed side, so you can show that through specific actions that you're taking, you're growing your community, and you can replicate this process. You track it, and you can show that you can replicate it, and you can take it to another country and replicate the process to show that you can scale. Then and Cyprus is a good place to demonstrate this because you've got easy access to channels. It's small cities, so I think it's not a bad place to do a B2C demo. You're not going to get $1 billion funding to grow your business in Cyprus, but you will get the business angel funding or that you need to demonstrate this strategy.
We also have a question about the specific call for proposals, the concept COVID. Who is asking?
Yes, Afi,
just to know who to mention. Hi, Chris. So this is a call for proposal specifically targeting entities that want to address the COVID-19 pandemic and aims at the development and commercial exploitation of innovative products or services to address the consequences of the pandemic, like the prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and measures to overcome the social and economic consequences, etc. Are you interested more on how you can apply to this, or do you want more information on what is this all about? You can unmute your microphone as well and
yeah, I guess we can also follow up with specific startups and their ideas.
Yes, I'm just sharing a link to their platform of the Research Innovation Foundation, the IRIS platform, where you can find all open calls for proposals that are announced. So if you search COVID, concept COVID, you will find this call for proposals and all relevant documents, the call for proposals, the guide for evaluators, etc., and what are the expectations and the requirements for a company to be able to seek for funding through this call.
But if you need more have particular questions or you need more help, we are happy to help you as IRIS or as Innovation Entrepreneurship Center. We have experience with grants and a lot of proposals. NP is our Bible on this. So contact us specifically afterwards, either via IRIS or by the Balkan Innova project.
Yes, of course, I can share IRIS email with you. So for any questions you may have, please feel free to contact us.
I have a question. Do you think a startup can rely on a grant for product development? Antti, do you want to tell us a bit about the grants? I think they also provide product development. And Petros, do you want to share your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the grant systems off by heart. That would be hard, but I think certain EU grants definitely offer this part of the. I mean, if you see Climate Kick as a type of grant, for instance, Climate Kick definitely is a grant process that supports the development from product from the very start, from conception all the way to go to market. So yeah, I would say there's European grants that definitely support this. In the context of Cyprus, I imagine REEF does this also. The pre-seed is a bit down this road, no?
Mm-hmm.
Pre-seed doesn't require you to have a finished product. It's a conception.
No, it's the product should be only at the idea stage, and it's not even required for you to have registered a company in Cyprus to do so. So it's really at the very early stages of a startup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have another comment. Considering Cyprus has real limitations, people in Cyprus are technologist enthusiasts, but not users of new innovative products. That's an opinion as well. Some people are more early adopters than others, we agree. And still the ones who are still in numbers to get the data you need to support and expand. Thank you, Yanni. And there is a lot that can be done. ARIS is part of this requirement, this drive to improve the startup marketplace in Cyprus. So if you have suggestions on how the startup marketplace can improve, please send them to us in the email that Antti has shared, hello@ariscy.com. And then when we slowly reopen, we would be glad to have you here at ARIS to discuss and to expand on how we can make Cyprus a better startup ecosystem.
Do we have any other questions from you? For Petros, for us, that you would like to share with us?
Petros, do you have any? Some people are typing, so let's give them a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Petros, do you want something else to share with new or existing businesses?
Well, I mean, look, starting a startup is not an easy thing. At the end of the day, it's a choice that you make and you live with it. If you're looking for a comfortable life, don't start a startup. It's as simple as that. Believe me, it will drive you to the ground before you actually see any light of day of sustaining a good fancy life. It's a choice, and the objective is really, there's going to be challenges, and your job is just to drive through the challenges one by one and find every resource that comes your way to overcome them and enjoy doing it. I mean, that's how it works at the end.
I think you should not be afraid to get burned, and you should be able to discuss and learn from your mistakes. And evolve. As long as you learn, no one gets it right the first time. So as long as you learn and move to the next step, you are better off.
Exactly.
So we have a question: would banks be open to provide a loan to a startup? That's a good question, but quite difficult to say yes or no. Because banks would have some requirements. From my understanding, banks have liquidity, so they want to have good borrowers. So they want to have people who are paying. And also the banks are now being supported by all these funds and schemes from the government and from the European Investment Bank that we mentioned earlier. So they have the background to provide funding. However, each case would be assessed separately. They would need to see how you would be able to repay your loan, and banks are a bit risk averse. So if it's something very early stage, they would be reluctant these days. It's not like the past days to give you funding. Can I get a grant for a wind tunnel that is powered from green energy?
Okay, for this, I can share with you the European Commission portal where you can find all relevant EU programs that are announced and all relevant open call for proposals for each program. So maybe you can find something interesting about the green energy. For sure, there may be something, I guess, for this.
The question is why? I mean, yeah, for sure he can, but like, who's your customer? Yeah, your customer is probably who owns wind tunnels today? Formula One cars. Why aren't they doing it? You know, like. But
I think he's speaking about indoor skydiving.
Ah. Well, interesting. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's how you spin it, I guess. Yeah. I would say yes, if you can prove that it's viable and.
Yeah. We can assess the relevant grants and proposals. Are there angel investors interested in startups founded in Cyprus?
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
We have the Cyban. Yeah, thank you, Bunny. Cyban is a business investors, business angels network in Cyprus.
I don't think it's location limited. As long as you can deliver a solution to a problem and show that you can take it to the market, any business named angel is interested.
And then there is also the option of crowdfunding. Some of them do not require access to only VCs, and angel investors are also investing through those platforms. We have a few more people typing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think COVID-19 will provide new opportunities for collaboration between startups and the industry? For example, big players on the tourism and hospitality looking to finance relevant startups to their field. Do you think COVID-19 will actually impact the industry towards adopting entrepreneurship or investing in startups? I think so, yeah. It could be a way to get businesses to get more digital if it solves a problem for them, if it makes their customers feel safer. Then I believe it depends on the business, of course. I believe they should be able and they should be willing to collaborate with startups.
I mean, my background is hospitality. I finished hotel management in Lausanne. Okay, and this is actually a very interesting question because this shows exactly how you can take advantage of Cyprus to really build a startup that is very valuable. So Cyprus's hospitality industry and tourism, the hotels, let's take, is driven by private hoteliers. Okay, you have the Four Seasons, and it's local guys. It's not big institutional tourism guys. You don't have the Four Seasons, the real Four Seasons. We have our Four Seasons in Cyprus. We're unique. So I think that's exactly a good example of how you can leverage the industry in Cyprus to do a pilot project in a hotel such as the Four Seasons, show how it reduces operating costs, and then really exploit linking this afterwards to tackle the big corporate institutional tourism companies abroad. So if you can prove that you've done a pilot project with a local hotel company like Anasa or any of the hotel companies in Cyprus, even the smaller ones like Atlantica, I put out there a few, like Atlantica, for instance, a 3-star hotel, and you can prove that technology with them through a pilot project, you go after a REEF grant where the owner, the site doesn't have to pay, and you can prove that the implementation of the technology reduce cost or increase customer retention and so what, then you have an amazing user case to then springboard into the European Union and go after the big hotel brands which want to exploit it on a global scale. And I think that's exactly how we should be using Cyprus.
Yeah, and actually the grants that Antti mentioned earlier, some of them are targeted to Cyprus only, they're national level. So you're competing with other companies in Cyprus. Whereas if you go and compete with the European ones, you are directly competing with every business in Europe who is looking to get funding on, for example, the ICIT accelerator that Antti was explaining.
Oh, really? Like, it's really, you're in a very good position. Like, if we work a bit more, and it's going to happen, I think the EU sees this as an opportunity, getting Kipro. So I think slowly, there is a lot of traction to make this type of startup ecosystem in Cyprus.
But even for the calls that are announced under the national funding, let's say the Research Innovation Foundation, still the products and the startup should have an international orientation and not focusing only in Cyprus. So
Yes.
you still
But
have
that's
to
exactly
compete.
where preparation of the call, as when with the hotel industry, if you go and say, do your business plan about only targeting the hotels in Cyprus, then you can. But if you say,
Yeah.
I'm piloting it in Cyprus with the local hoteliers, and my objective is to then prove the concept here so that I can sell it to the big brands in the European or North America, then you've really got a good thinking, and everybody should support this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's all we had from today. I would like to thank everyone for joining. Thank you to Petros for joining us from Zurich. It was interesting to chat with you. If you have more questions or more specific questions, you can contact us at the ARIS website, and we also, yes, you can contact us at hello@aris.
Yeah.
Why?
I have my email, so feel free to contact for any questions.
So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you to the Cyprus University of Technology for hosting this project as part of the Balkan Innova project. Thank you for collaborating with us and for inviting us to host this webinar. And we hope you are all safe and well. And we hope you start your new venture and you go excellent, do excellent, and you go to the massive markets around the world. Anything, Antti and Petros, you want to say, or should we wrap this up?
Thank you to Aris for inviting me. And yeah, best of luck with all your startups and your ventures. Enjoy the journey.